Olivia, testing. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can.
Great.
You can see me. There we go. All right. I see Dr. Leffler. I think we are ready to get started here. Welcome, everyone, to the May 27th Burlington COVID-19 update. Thanks for joining us. It's been a few days since our last briefing with the holiday on Monday, and it is Wednesday. We are joined once again. Still, is everything okay, Olivia? My screen's sort of frozen up here.
You are going in and out a little bit, but your sound just came back in.
All right. Well, it's quite fitting since what I was starting to say is we're joined today by Dr. Stephen Leffler, the President and Chief Operating Officer of the UVM Medical Center, and also today, the cover boy of the 7 days weekly edition here, Doc Star cover boy. And the dramatic opening scene is a technical glitch on one of these briefings. So of course we have one getting going here today too, but we'll work through that with your calm, steady hand, Dr. Leffler. And thanks so much for joining us once again. And it was such a thoughtful, well-deserved piece. I do recommend everyone check it out. It really gives you a sense of the challenges the medical center has been facing through this and how Dr. Leffler has led the way through it and has led really Vermont in a lot of ways through the first stages of this pandemic, and to really so far, and this is by no means this story is far from over. We have many challenges ahead, but right now, that's the map on the COVID Act Now site this morning. It's pretty much the same map as we saw 2 weeks ago, last time we talked about this map, and when we looked at it with Dr. Sharfstein. And, it was interesting. Last week, I think they're always sort of working on their methodology for this. This is an emerging area, but last week, a bunch of the East Coast was starting to lighten up and show shades of green, and now things have worsened again, or at least from the analytics side. But Vermont continues to kind of glow with green there, because the metrics continue to be at this point, and it's fragile, and we know that things could turn quickly. But right now, the metrics coming out of the hospital there on the screen, as well as many other metrics, seem to continue to be very good. Dr. Leffler, am I reading the math right? Is that the way you're seeing it too?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the map is a nice reflection on Vermont and where we're currently at. And I'm actually not surprised at all that places go from green to yellow to red and then back and forth. I've been saying that for a couple months now. I think COVID's here with us. And I think that as our economy and as our country starts to loosen up restrictions a little bit, you're going to see areas that have a spike and surge. We know right now Maine is getting a lot of cases. Maybe that's not surprising. People go to the coast, people want to go to their camps. And so I really think that Vermont has continued to do a very, very good job of having a coordinated response. And I think a lot of the reason that we're staying green is because we've pretty much been consistent across our government, our hospital, our healthcare response, our cities and towns. Vermonters have essentially bought in. This is the way to keep their friends and neighbors safe through this time. And so I'm not surprised to see areas pop back and forth into different categories. But I am really happy to see Vermont has been consistently staying green. Across the state, Vermont has 5 new positives from yesterday. We're doing more testing now, so I'm not surprised to see more positives. But really importantly, we've stayed steady at 54 deaths. That's over the past 12 days at this point, no new deaths. At the UVM Medical Center, we only have 1 positive inpatient, 4 rule-outs, and no patients in our ICU, no patients on ventilators right now. And as we've been saying now for about 3 weeks, that affords us the capacity as a state to start loosening up the spigot, as our governor likes to say, and allow more activities. The hospital has been providing more care to patients who've been really patiently waiting for services. We're doing more operative cases now, both elective inpatient cases and outpatient cases. And that's great for our patients who've been waiting. People have been waiting for things they really need to carry on normal life and not be in pain. And so we're very happy we can provide that. And we're also happy to see more of things start to be opened up around the state. This week, there's more opportunities for people to get back closer to normal. When we talked, I think it was last week, we spent some time talking about the article by Atul Gawande, and I actually think that's a roadmap for how we get back closer to normal and stay green. I really firmly believe that there's a way for Vermonters to start going out to dinner again, to start enjoying more things that are normal. Maybe not everything right away. Maybe we can't go to a big concert with 2,000 people at it or 5,000 people right away. But I think with masks, screening, good hand washing, good testing, we can really start to do more in the state. And so we're spending a lot of time talking about right now, what would it look like for people to be able to leave the state and come back without 14 days of quarantine? How would you do that? But you can see right now in this map, there's big challenges to that. Places like Maine, New York, our partner states, Massachusetts, Connecticut are red right now. And so Vermonters who go there and come back could be coming back with early COVID or asymptomatic. So how we do that's going to be really important, or we'll find ourselves in a different category on the map. I really wanted to impress on people now that as we start to slow down on social distancing, that's a hard stop to people just staying home and allowing Vermonters to do more things. The ability for them to wear masks, which is for protecting the people around you, that's a social good. When you wear a mask, you're protecting people who may not have as good an immune system as you do, maybe more at risk. You may expose someone to COVID if you're not wearing a mask that goes home and their elderly grandma gets sick or something like that. So a mask is for the good of all of us. And it's really for the good of our businesses. I think that the debate that's nationally going on over masks totally misses the point. Masking is now, we know, one of the very best ways to get things as close to normal as possible. Hand washing is in the same category. Smart social distancing is in that same category. I actually see it as a patriotic act and an act for all of us to protect each other, to be doing those things, not as proof that you're tough or you're not worried about catching the virus. It may not be your issue. It may be someone else that you're protecting. So that's really most of my update. I did want to just take a second to give people an update on the Fanny Allen. We've had continued challenges over there. And over the weekend, we had to move our rehab patients back to the medical center. I just want to let people know that over the course of last week, we had some staff members, all staff, start to have some odd symptoms of lightheadedness, headaches, nausea. And I want you to know we tested them for COVID. They don't have COVID. It was only for a subset of the staff, no patients. Most staff weren't affected, but we made the decision on Saturday when 5 people started not feeling well that the smart thing to do is get our patients and staff back over to the medical center while we could sort it out. And we're partnering with the Department of Health, an outside expert, and other resources to figure out what's going on in rehab. And I wanted to let people know that all other parts of the building appear completely safe. So it's safe to go there for urgent care, and the OR has been operating. We have really extensive testing in the building now to make sure people are safe, and no evidence of any air quality issues. So I just wanted to make sure people know that we are very confident that the rest of the building is safe, and we're dealing with the rehab issue, and we won't go back until we're sure it's safe for our staff and patients.
Thank you for all that, Dr. Leffler. It is always interesting to hear what's going on the front lines, and I appreciate you pointing out that it's been what did you say, almost approximately 12 days since the last fatality in Vermont?
Yes, 12 days as of today.
Has one thing, someone who comes into the hospital with COVID today, have we learned over the last 3 months anything that allows us to treat that patient more differently today than we did back in mid-March when this was new? Does a patient coming in today is it a greater chance of surviving than they did back then?
In general, yes. I mean, first off, we had really, really good success here. So we knew from across the world, we knew from Italy, we knew from New York City that people who ended up on a ventilator had a high risk of death. In some places, it was 50 to 70%. And we only had about a 20% death rate for people on ventilators. We
Wow.
had some experts here who were doing some very novel, cutting edge therapies for these patients. And we learned both good things to do from our partners across the country and some things not to try. There's some evidence coming out on some meds that, looked promising and now aren't so much. So we've built on that knowledge. So to your point, Moreau, we are better at taking care of people early in the illness. Like we know, for example, that people that have low oxygen levels, which normally would make people very sick, people aren't noticing that very much. And oxygen early on seems to make a significant difference for people and how sick they get and how much lung damage they get. We know how we manage them on the ventilator makes a huge difference. How we position them on the beds. And so we've learned a lot about this illness, and we've learned a lot about how to save people's lives, both before they get really sick and when they are really sick, how to get them out of the hospital. I don't have the number right in front of me, but we discharged the vast majority of people who came to our hospital with COVID, and they're back to home and doing well.
Excellent. When at the end of after you sign off, we were gonna show people some updates to the dashboard that the city has up on its webpage, which one of the things you can now see is the overwhelming number of people who have recovered. That's being tracked by the state, county by county, and you can see it on our dashboard in a pretty clear way now. Dr. Leffler, I on Wednesdays also have this morning coffee and the topic of conversation there. And I think really I've seen it just about everywhere in one way or another in recent weeks is people really hungry for actionable information, useful information as we enter this. I think a lot of people, hopefully the great majority of people, understand that this reopening does not mean going back to normal. This reopening does not mean that the risk of the virus is gone. And I think everyone is searching for wisdom about how, how do we function? How do we as a family, as an individual, function in this new environment? And looking for really, practical information about that. And I appreciate all the journalism that's happening that is trying to inform that. And I think people are getting their information on that in a variety of ways. But do you have anything front of mind to share on that front this week?
It's sort of the same stuff we've already been talking about, but I will reiterate because I think it's so important. So the social distancing that we did bought us time to learn more about how to care for people who have COVID, to understand more about how the disease spreads, learn more about ways to help prevent the spread. And now that we're going to ease up social distancing, we have to use those lessons really well. And so, for example, and once again, I want to harp on this because I think it's so important. We know that a lot of people who have COVID are asymptomatic, especially early on in their illness. And we know that one asymptomatic person can spread COVID to many other people who could get very, very sick, even if you aren't. And there's really good evidence now, different evidence. I mean, I think I was on with you 2 months ago, and I wasn't sure that cloth masks made a big difference. And they probably don't protect you from catching COVID very well, but for sure, they do prevent you from spreading it. And we should talk about how many people get COVID from one infected person. And there's good evidence now, that shows that you wearing a mask, if you have COVID, you decrease the number of people that you expose to COVID and catch it from you. So things like wearing a mask, washing your hands, and being respectful of social distancing makes a huge difference in how successful Vermont is getting back to normal. So I think all of our jobs, from our families up to our big businesses, have to think about what does life look like when there's some COVID around? What are things that we can do, little things, small things like wear a mask and wash our hands to let us get back closer to normal? And so the hospital right now is fully engaged in a plan for as much normal operations as possible that we possibly can do. while having some COVID cases here, having 1 case or 5 cases or 6 cases, having maybe 1 or 2 people on ventilators. We think we have a good plan now. We're pretty comfortable with how to keep our staff safe with COVID around and how to prevent a lot of spread in the hospital. And I think if businesses took on that model of there's going to be some, what can we do to keep our staff safe and the people that we're serving safe, we can get back to close to a normal way we were before. And eventually we'll get back to normal. I'm very confident that we'll get through this like we have other pandemics. But we have good knowledge now how to move forward. It'll keep getting better too, I think. I think, science is leading the way. There's some great trials going on right now for vaccines that are very encouraging. There's going from where they are at to being able to distribute that out to 1 billion people, but good progress is being made there. So, early in 21, we could have a vaccine, but we have to get from here to there safely.
All right, excellent, Dr. Leffler. I will let you go in a sec. I do just while we have this map up here, I know something. We don't have a full update for people on this briefing. We talked about it with President Garamella on Friday. The city is working with the state and with the University of Vermont, and I'm happy to say with Champlain College, to do everything we can to keep that green color there going, even as one of the things that happens in the coming weeks is we do expect there to be students with coming back to Burlington who are starting leases on June 1st, and we are really trying to take those lessons of not necessarily a Atul Gawande piece that we talked about, but the box it in strategy that we talked about with Dr. Sharfstein and that you and I have talked about previously. There is an effort for each one of those strategies. There's a plan for each one of them and how we apply them to this situation. And we'll have a full briefing on it Friday. We may have actually, further public updates on it even before Friday. But I do just want members of the public who, I know this is something on the minds of a lot of people. I got positive feedback on the kind of outline of the plan that we gave on last Friday. More detail is coming very soon on that, with very much that goal and awareness that we are operating in this environment now where even though there's very little virus circulating right now that we can see in the data here in Chittenden County, that could change quickly. And this is one of the things that could cause that to change. And we're doing our best to plan for it and have a proactive strategy on it. So
I could not agree more that these students coming back, some of them could absolutely come back with asymptomatic COVID. And so we need to impress upon them that when they're here, they're Vermonters and they have to act in the ways that we've acted to stay green. And so I think there's been a lot of good work on a plan for this population, and we'll have to work with them to help them understand how important this is and to live in the ways that we are to keep each other safe. So I think there's work there, but I think there is a good plan in place, and we will adapt as necessary to deal with that.
Excellent. We'll let you go, get back to your many other duties. Thanks so much for tuning in once again, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Nice talking to you.
Let's keep moving, Olivia. The next update is about Green Up Day. Basically, we just wanted people to be aware Green Up Day is happening as usual, but like everything else, there's a lot that is going to be different this year, so that this kind of mass activity can be completed safely. And we have Cindy White, our Parks, Recreation, Waterfront Director here. Cindy, you have some details for us on Green Up Day?
Sure. So as you noted, Green Up Day is happening as it always happens every year. Things are definitely different. We're not greening up in the beginning of May as we normally are greening up. Now we're greening up the end of the month. So the grass is a little taller now. So it's a little more challenging to find the tidbits on the sides of the road. But it is still a really important time in Vermont. And we've been doing it now for 50 years for this opportunity to really take that chance to clean up our public spaces. But one of the things that's different about this year is we're not encouraging large groups to come together. And that's one of the things that historically we've really worked with larger groups to take on certain areas of the city. Instead, we're really focusing on this more as a family activity, that this is something that you can do together as a family, find areas right near your home and try to make them look a lot nicer when you're done. So there's different places you can be picking up your bags. You can pick them up at the City Market on the south end, Jake's Market in the Old North End, Old Spokes Home, and then also Burlington Subaru. So this week, so folks could go in today if they wanted, could go in and pick up a bag. And really, you could start picking up trash today. It doesn't have to be just on Green Up Day. So between now and Green Up Day, which is Saturday, get your bag, go to your closest park or maybe a public right of way, or also our green belts, which is that area again for folks that aren't familiar, between the sidewalk and the road, that green stretch through there. That's also all public right of ways too. So anything people can do to help is really appreciated. And when they get their bags, you would just leave them preferably by a major arterial, so the staff aren't having to go down random small streets to try to find every green bag. If you do it in the parks, you would just leave it by a trash can, just to make it easier. But of course, we just talked about masks. So I don't know if you can see this, but we, I don't know if you can pick that out. We got a few bees, Burlington bee on our mask, but because we had to make sure we were ready for our summer camps this summer. So of course we had to get some Burlington bee masks, keep up with the airport. And so folks can make sure they want to bring their mask with them. If you're in with just a small family group, you don't have to wear that mask right in your family group, but you never know who you're going to come out with. And I find it's just easier. I always either have my mask around my neck or a style like this. It's easy just to pull down. But then when I'm close to others, I can easily pull it up and keep going with what I'm doing. So wear your gloves, bring your mask, bring your water, pick up your bag this week, and help us green up Burlington.
Excellent, Cindy. Great summary. Appreciate that you don't come on the briefing without props. Last week we had the bathing suit. This week the mask. And thanks for. I appreciate the way the altered message this year, and it is great that on the 50th anniversary we can find a way to continue this Vermont tradition that's had a positive impact on the state, and I think on how we think of ourselves. And thank you to Parks and the partners for finding a way to continue the tradition this year.
You're welcome. And so I just want to note, so our Parks team will be going around, but also DPW is very supportive with this effort to with the trucks. So both organizations working on it. So we'll do that sort of back end picking up the bags, but we need you to go out and pick up the trash. So grab your friends, grab your family, small groups, and let's clean up Burlington.
Excellent, Cindy. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, we wanted to give an update and actually announce a policy change with the extending the deadline for Burlington property taxpayers who are going to have trouble making their June 12th property tax payment. If you would like to defer that payment until August, this is not eliminating the payment. There would be two payments that would then be due in August, but you can defer payment without penalty or interest payments as you would normally be charged. And we are asking people who would like this benefit to apply for it. There's a very simple application up on the city website that you can go to and fill it out. It really should take less than 3 minutes probably to fill out the application. It will give us some important additional information to understand what Burlington property taxpayers are facing, and it will help us make decisions going forward about possibly extending or expanding this program in some way before the August 12th payment. We understand that some businesses and individuals have been hit so hard by this that the August payment could be an issue as well. while we have nothing to announce at this point about additional relief, that is something we are exploring. Important point to stress: if you are a property taxpayer that wants this benefit and has residential or commercial tenants, you will need to, if you take advantage of this benefit, you will need to pass it along to your tenants as well. So again, the policy change is that the application deadline up until now had been June 1. We are expanding that until June 12th so that more Burlingtonians can apply for and take advantage of this benefit that was supported and I believe it was unanimously or almost unanimously supported by the City Council. More information about this program is on the city website, and as you can see there at the bottom of the screen. And now I did just want to speak once again about food security. We know that this remains a significant issue in this pandemic for many, many Vermonters. We had a sign of that yesterday when 550 cars came through the meal distribution site set up out on Route 127 by the Vermont National Guard. I want to thank the Vermont Emergency Management and Vermont National Guard for their leadership on this event and for the Vermont Food Bank's efforts. I also want to thank our team that helped support the event, the Burlington Police Department and the Fire Department. At the same time, these events always, remind me that of all issues, food security is not a one-day issue. This is not something that a one-off event can fully address, even when generous amounts of food are being given out. We know we're in for this long fight with this pandemic and the related economic issues that have been created, and I am concerned that many Burlingtonians are going to face food insecurity on an ongoing basis and going to need help on a sustained basis. There's a whole array of programs that have been set up. Some of them have been expanded by the community to respond to this. And I think this is an area where our relief response is going to continue to evolve and change. For us to get that right, we need to know about the issues that people are facing. And so I just want to say once again, if you or someone you know is suffering in this pandemic from food insecurity, you don't need to suffer alone. This is an issue we can help you with. Get in touch with the Resource and Recovery Center, the number there on the screen, and the email address. And we want to know about it so that we can continue to tailor our response to the needs that are taking place out in the community with respect to food. I think that is our last slide for today. And I'm happy to take some questions now if there are any.
And Mayor, I don't know, do you want to quickly spotlight the dashboard as well?
Oh yeah, thanks for reminding me, Olivia. So we did want to just basically highlight once again the COVID-19 dashboard that the city team has set up. This is, and Olivia, are you going to pull it up as we're talking here?
I am, yes.
Okay. So if you haven't been to the dashboard in a couple of days, you'll see that there have been some features added that, as I referenced earlier, that are new to the dashboard and that allow people to visualize the data coming from the state for the most part. There is a little bit of local data, but most of this is Department of Health data, information that only they have. There's new ways to manipulate it and look at it in this interface that the city team has set up. Olivia, I think, is showing us how easy it is to get to the dashboard. You can scroll through these tiles right on the home page. There it is. One of the tiles, the dashboard, it takes you to this landing page, and then there are really two choices from there. And this is the one I go to most often. I go here pretty much at least once a day to check out what the latest information is coming from the state with respect to Chittenden County infections. You can see there's some new checkoff boxes there and new ways to display all the information we have about COVID-19 cases in Chittenden County and the other counties going back to the beginning of the pandemic. That gray bar is something I referenced in the discussion with Dr. Leffler. The gray bar, when you click on that, that shows the large majority of Chittenden County residents who have tested positive have recovered, and that's what the gray bar shows. The blue and yellow bars are active cases, active in the last 30 days or more recently than that. And there is a way to visualize the deaths here as well. Then you can scroll farther down the page, and this is a graph that we're keeping a close eye on. These are another way to look at the day by day the new cases in Chittenden County, and you can see there that it has been quite quiet. Really, since going all the way back to mid-April, there's been a very low number of cases. It can look like a significant spike on that bar, but you got to remember the scale here. A couple of days ago, there were 3 cases, 3 new positives. That shows up as that kind of spike there. Went back down to 1 yesterday, and most of the last 2 weeks has been very quiet. We're going to have our eye on that. And I know the governor's team is given to see if the reopening, the loosening of certain guidelines, what the impact is in new infections. So was there anything else you want to point out there, Olivia? This is actually while you're on here, this is an interesting one to watch. This is the Church Street Marketplace visitors information that comes from cell phone data. And you can see, unsurprisingly, over the last week, as retail operations have begun again, as some outdoor dining has resumed, you do see a modest uptick in the activity. You can see it is still well below where we were back in March in normal times, and March is a relatively slow month as well. Normally in the summer, I think you'd see significantly higher numbers than that. My reaction to this is that that's probably right about where we want to be. Not a massive increase in activity as we cautiously, slowly come out of this, but some move in the right direction, responding to the policy changes. Let's hope, let's hope that continues to build, while the other graph, the new infections, continues to stay at very low levels. That's the goal we're working towards in the weeks ahead. With full awareness that there's no guarantee of that, and it's in all of our hands to ensure that continues. Is there anything else, Olivia, that you want to point out here?
No, I don't think so particularly. Regular viewers of this briefing might recognize this circle graph down here, which is the requests that are coming into the RRC. So that is where we pull that graph from for these briefings, and you can drill into that a little bit there. And there's other information here as well that we haven't talked about, and so this is just an interesting place to poke around for people who are curious.
All right, with that, are there any questions from the media, Olivia?
One moment, let me check. It looks like we do have a question from Aiden Quigley from VT Digger. I don't see Aiden in the Zoom, so I will go ahead and ask Aiden's question. The question is there any update on the North Beach campground site for those experiencing homelessness this summer?
Thanks, Aiden. So the update is that we're still working closely with a new place to try to get a new tent-based facility open very soon. June 1st is the target date that a new place has identified when they want to have this new facility in operation. They, after the big push from March until the North Beach facility was taken down. Needed to give, the staff had been working very hard through that period and been under a lot of pressure. They've been taking a couple weeks to kind of regroup with the disbanding of that site. But that's what we're working towards. And certainly you can expect a future briefing will have the details of that as those details are nailed down.
It looks like that is our only question from the media today.
Great. Is there anything else? When we've had the time, we've looked to the Facebook stream. Is there anything else to address there? I'm looking in my phone here too.
There is a question here from someone named Barbara asking a question that we did touch on a little bit, but Barbara's question is, what about thousands of students coming back from hotspot states who may be asymptomatic carriers but don't quarantine as requested?
So, that's a great question, Barbara. I mean, that gets at the the heart of the limitations to government action in a free society. We certainly, the way Governor Scott has laid this out, is this is a order. This is something that everyone is expected to do, and we are making sure that we're doing everything we can think of to make sure that people are aware. There are multiple communications that have been going to all UVM students and Champlain students, as well as their families, about what the expectations are. And we are trying to think through everything we can, knowing what we do about just how people interact, and how people think about their decisions and their behaviors. We are trying to set up a system that creates the right incentives and the right just is structured properly, so that there's a high degree of compliance with that order. I think the reason Vermont is green when so much of the rest of the country is not, is that we have had very high levels of voluntary compliance. There's been very limited enforcement ability from the beginning of this, and yet the great majority of Vermonters, and certainly enough Vermonters to matter, have followed along with this. And I think that is important to remember, and it's something Dr. Sharfstein mentioned in his talk at the town meeting a couple weeks ago, is that you don't need to have a good population health outcome to keep the state and Chittenden County in good shape. You don't need 100% compliance. You don't need to catch every new infection. You just need to have enough people doing it that you keep all the trends going in the right direction, that you keep the infection rate declining instead of growing. And these box it in strategies can have a huge impact on getting that outcome, even if not every person complies and not every infection potential infection is stopped. And so we've had very good success at that since the beginning of the pandemic. Our hope is that through communications from the institutions, from the city, from their peers, that anyone who has not been here but that is returning in this period understands that they have a responsibility and thinks about that. Perhaps if we get deeper into this pandemic and there are new spikes, if there is a new wave, it's possible that the government response to this could shift, and there could be a greater focus on enforcement in the future. I think right now, given how successful these voluntary compliance efforts have been, that is going to continue to be the focus, and let's hope it continues to have the same levels of success that it has until now.
It looks like there is one other question from someone watching in the Facebook stream. This question is from Sarah, And Sarah's question is, what about people who are experiencing homelessness and staying in hotels or motels? Will they be able to stay there after June 1st?
Yeah, the answer is yes. This is a program that is run by the state, and so the Department of Children and Families has really been running that program. And I'm not sure I'm able to give a kind of up to the minute update today on where that is. But basically their posture from the beginning, and I appreciate this, has been that, given the huge role that having a good shelter, having a home, and really not a group home, but your own place with a door, your own roof, and given the role that plays in this public health epidemic, that from the beginning, the state and the city's posture has been that there had to be suitable accommodations for people experiencing homelessness. And the state, while has basically signaled that they are going to continue to provide an unusual level of homeless vouchers for some time to come. I don't think they put a firm deadline on that, but they have been making plans for there to be facilities and expanded vouchers in place for many months to come. So I appreciate the question. Sorry, I don't have a totally current update. It's been a couple weeks ago, I think we had the state on, and they made it clear that they were continuing the voucher program. We'll try to make appreciate that a couple questions today from the media and the public have been about the status of the homelessness efforts, and we will have a full update on that in the coming days. Certainly, with the approach of June 1st and the goal of a new place, definitely an update is warranted there, and we'll try to, when we do that, have a broader update on where the hotel motel voucher program stands. As of today, the state is continuing to make available hundreds more vouchers than they do in normal times.
It looks like those are all the questions we have.
All right, great. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Our plan is to be back again on Friday, going into the weekend with another briefing, and then we do have a city council meeting coming up on June 1st on Monday, and expect that we'll have updates for that as well. So we'll see you all again soon. Thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you again soon.